Hello everyone. Now you will hear a short retelling of the film, Love and Honor. Enjoy watching. The food of Japanese feudal lords has always been subject to mandatory testing for the presence of poison in it. This was done by specially trained samurai. They were called Oniyaku. Shinojo Mimura is one of such low-ranking samurai. During breakfast, Kei noticed that something was gnawing at her husband. Shinojo complains about his work. It is useless, a mere formality. The girl was sure that this was a solemn procedure, taking place in front of the master, but they were sitting in a dark room next to the kitchen, and Shinojo had never even met with the daimyo. The samurai mocks his wife's naivety. Another boring day at work. 5 samurai receive different dishes. One of them is constantly asking others about the taste. The chief asked if they had any painful sensations. After that, the servants defiantly handed the food to the other 3 samurai, and they already took it to the feudal lord. The old servant Takuhei follows the young master everywhere and teaches him. Shinojo tells his wife that he dreams of quitting the service and opening a martial arts school. Moreover, he would take the children of commoners into it, and the methods would be soft without the use of a stick. There is a whole team of cooks working in the kitchen. The Oniyaku got their pots. Shinojo got sashimi from the trumpeter. Other tasters envied him. The tested food was already carried to the feudal lord, but suddenly Shinojo became ill and he fell to the floor. The daimyo had already put a few pieces in his mouth, but immediately spat everything out when he found out that the food was poisoned. Mimura vomits, and the cooks are ordered to stay in their places. The gates are closed. No one will leave the castle now. The servant tried to find out if his master was hurt, but he was kicked out of the castle. The investigation was soon completed. The head of security, Toya, reports that it's all about the trumpeter's clams. It causes poisoning if eaten in the wrong season. Therefore, the charges against the cooks were dropped. It wasn't a conspiracy, but the old man who was in charge of the tasting, Shimoda, ordered to commit harakiri. The patient is being taken home on a cart. The doctor tells Kayo how to get her husband off with medicine. In a couple of days he should wake up. The girl takes the drug in her mouth and pours it into the mouth of her beloved. Mrs. Hatano came to visit her sick nephew. She calms Kayo down and gives her some money for medicines. Suddenly Shinojo raises his voice. He is glad that this talkative aunt has finally left. The servant and spouse are very happy. The samurai was unconscious for 3 whole days, and he even has an appetite, but when Shinojo opened his eyes, he realized that he could not see anything. In the evening, Kayo tells the servant that her husband did not look at her so intently before, always hid his gaze, was shy, and today he stared straight at her. The girl brings another dose of medicine, and her husband tries to find it by touch. Kayo realized that her lover could not see anything, and he was silent because he did not want to disturb her. He can only distinguish between light and darkness. Kayo began to cry, but immediately pulled herself together and began to calm Shinojo. Tomorrow she will bring the doctor again, but he did not tell the samurai anything specific. Only that this is a complication after a fever, and that the main thing is to eat well, but the doctor tells his wife separately that the poison of shellfish often leads to blindness, and no treatment will help here. Shinojo woke up in the middle of the night. In a dream, he saw both his wife and nature, and when he woke up, the world was plunged into darkness. Kayo hesitates to tell the truth, and gives him the eye medicine to drink again. Mimura's colleagues are worried about how he can earn a living now. He is too proud to work as a masseur singer. The new chief for tasting looks at his subordinates very carefully and yells if they decide to speak. Tired Kayo runs around the stone for 100 prayers in the hope of divine help. Toya stopped her on the street. He has noticed such a beauty for a long time, and knows that her husband no longer sees the white light. Probably she is now thinking how she should live on, if he will always be glad to see her at home. While she was not at home, Shinojo forced the servant to tell him what was really wrong with his eyes. Now he is sitting angrily on the veranda and listening to the birds singing. Shinojo accepts an apology from his wife for lying, but asks to leave him alone. At night, the samurai fumbles around the room in search of the bowl, but Takuhei locked him in the pantry on the orders of the mistress. Kayo will not allow her husband to rip his stomach. In the end, his wife will begin to despise him. No, she will never leave her husband. His family sheltered her when she became an orphan. If he kills himself, Kayo will follow him. The Shinojo clan is thinking about how the couple will live now. Kayo is ready to work as anyone, even as a servant. Perhaps Shinojo can claim at least half of the salary. After all, he went blind serving the feudal lord, but it is necessary that someone put in a word for him in the castle. Kayo remembers the head of the guard, Toya. Relatives demand to go to him right now. This is their only chance not to stay on the street, but the girl understands that an influential samurai may demand from her in return. Some time has passed. Shinojo comes in holding his wife's shoulder. His uncle came with unexpectedly good news. Shinojo retains his rank and is assigned a lifetime allowance of 30 koku of rice. That's equal to his salary. Our hero is a little uneasy. This is much more than what he expected. In the evening, Kayo irons clothes. Suddenly they will be called to the castle, but Shinojo does not want this. Everyone will feel sorry for him. Thanks to the good news, his sense of humor returned to him, and, as before, he began to make fun of Takuhei. He also changed his mind about dying, and asks for his sword back. Zenitsu welcomes his old partners. He is taken to say hello to the owner himself. It is a great honor. The blind man is attacked by a swarm of mosquitoes, and he prostrates himself when the feudal lord approaches. That's all the honors. Zenitsu sits on the veranda and complains that Kayo does not return from the temple for a long time. At this moment, Mrs. Hatano came to visit. She is not happy with the samurai, not his servant. She brought her grandson to say hello to her uncle. The men immediately check out each other's biceps. When they were alone, the woman started talking about Kayo. Her husband saw the girl with another man, judging by the clothes of a samurai of high rank. Zenitsu reproaches his aunt that she came to him only to tell dirty gossip. His Kayo is not such a woman and immediately asks a relative to leave. During lunch, Zenitsu is thoughtful and angry. Kayo immediately noticed this, but the proud samurai does not say anything, and after finishing the meal, he silently closed himself in the room. Kayo once again goes to the temple, but now, at the behest of Zenitsu, Takuhei is watching her. At first glance, nothing unusual. The owner should be ashamed of such speculation, but then the girl runs into the hotel where Isamoto Toya immediately comes to her. Kayo returned home. Zenitsu still does not want to communicate with her. Takuhei is now uncomfortable talking to the hostess. She also suspects that the servant was watching her. The old man answers her that it was definitely a dream. He has known the owner since she was a girl, and it just couldn't be her. It was another woman, so he will tell the owner. But Kayo decided to tell her husband about everything. Because of her act, the girl wanted to lay her hands on herself, but how can she leave her helpless husband alone? She cries and grieves that she then succumbed to persuasion and confessed everything to Kayo. The main thing that interests the samurai is the name of his opponent. Kayo tells how at the general training camp, her uncle insisted that she go to Isamod, and he stared at her when she was still a girl. So she begged for his salary. A satisfied Ishimoto convinces the girl that he will do everything possible and immediately grabs her by the kimono, and takes her by force, because nothing is given for free. Kayo hoped that this would be the end of it, but then he began to blackmail her that he would tell her husband about everything. She had to come to him a second time and a third. Her life had turned into hell, and Zenitsu was enjoying his salary like a fool. He will not kill his wife even though she asks for it. The Kayo he knew was already dead. Zenitsu tells the servant that Kayo is no longer his wife. He should pack up and kick her out. Takuhei tried to intercede, but the owner demands to drive her away right now at night in the rain. The next day, Shinizu took a wooden sword and began to train, chasing Takuhei around the yard. He learns to navigate in space. So he practiced both morning and evening. After that, I came to hone my skills to my sensei. At the level of sensations, he tracks the movement of the swordsman, and even parries his blows. Rage rages in him, and the teacher reminds Zenitsu that he has no chance against the sighted, but blindness is also his advantage. The opponent will underestimate him, but a real fight is not a training. One move and the blind man is killed. Sensei is interested in who his opponent is and what the reason is, but Zenitsu's pride does not allow him to confess. He gets advice that he can win if he is ready to die. Autumn came, friends came to Zenitsu and tell him that when he went blind, the elders first cut his salary from 30 to 20 koku of rice a year, but the master, in gratitude for saving his life, personally ordered to provide for the blind man until the end of his life. That is, Sumitotoya did not even do anything for this. According to friends, he would rather strangle himself than put in a word for his subordinates. Enraged, Zenitsu orders Takuhei to immediately go to Toy Shimada, and say that the blind samurai will be waiting for him tomorrow at 1 o'clock at the old stable. He will understand why and let him not discount the fact that he is blind. Sumada Toya boasts that he has a fencer's license from the best school in the capital, and says that he will certainly come to punish the impudent blind man. At night, Takuhei begs Zenitsu to give up the duel, but the samurai's honor is hurt. He also deceived Kayo, taking advantage of her defenselessness. His anger is too great, and death is not terrible. Zenitsu and the servant came to the place of the duel in advance. Takuhei tells what is around the samurai. Zenitsu tied his wife's belt on his head. Sumada Toya came out of the bushes and mocks the fact that his rival kicked his wife out of the house. Sumada Toya did not like that he was called a scoundrel, and he allegedly will not regret the blind man for sure now. He struck the first blow with a smile, and was stunned when Zenitsu was able to repel him, and even doubted the samurai's blindness, but after making sure of it, he went on the attack. A strong wind blew and taking advantage of the moment, Shimoda hid in the stable. The scoundrel climbed onto the roof and jumped on Zenitsu from above, but only ran into his sword. The young samurai asks the servant what's wrong with Shimada. The arm is severed, but Zenitsu will not finish him off. Kayo has already taken revenge. Taking the wand, Zenitsu went home. Later, he is told that when Shimoda got to the castle, he was interrogated about what the duel was about, but he did not say a word. Oh, I made myself harakiri at night. Everyone is now gossiping about where the samurai who cut off the hand of such a skilled swordsman could have come from. One of the birds in the cage died. She needs to be buried. The second bird will now be sad to live alone, so Senitsu releases her into the wild. The samurai complains about the terrible food that the servant prepares for him, and he offers to hire a cook today. Evening has come, dinner is ready. After sitting down, the owner tells the servant that he regrets that he sent him to follow his wife. Kayo would still be with him then. By the way, the rice is surprisingly delicious today, and there are pickled sweet potatoes on the plate, which his wife always cooked for him. Kayo was hiding in the kitchen the whole time. My husband asks me to pour him some water. He grabbed her hand and hugged her. The girl started crying and asked to stay by his side. He's glad she's back.